And that is how you play the Newlywed Game. Do you think it's fun?
Yeah,
like,
with everybody else, like not just the two of us.
Yeah, and maybe harder questions.
Yeah.
Hi guys, thanks for watching. Today I'm going to teach you how to play the Newlywed Game both on Zoom and in person. It actually doesn't change that much whether you're playing on Zoom or in person, but there are a couple of things to keep in mind as you're playing just to make it go a little bit more smoothly if you are going to play it virtually. If you're new to my channel, guys, my name is Brittany. I make videos about wedding stuff, so if this is interesting or helpful for you, please remember to like it and then subscribe to my channel. The Newlywed Game was a really popular TV show back in the 1960s, and it's been revised over the years. Different versions have come out, and it's also a really fun party game. It gets played at wedding showers, bachelorette parties, wedding rehearsals, and even on the wedding day itself, especially these days where more and more people are looking for alternatives to dancing at weddings because of certain restrictions going on, or they're having virtual weddings and just looking for activities that they can play online. Put really simply, if I were going to explain the purpose of the Newlywed Game, it would go something like this. There's a couple and a host, and the host asks the couple a series of questions, personal questions about their relationship. The couple answers one at a time, and if their answers match each other, that's a point or a win. If their answers don't match, they lose. Ideally, if you're trying to win the game, you want to have matching answers with your partner, but really it's just like a fun game to kind of laugh about, and the crowd really enjoys it. My partner Phil and I actually did a little Newlywed Game demonstration for you guys, which I'm going to show a little bit of throughout this video, so hopefully you can learn from our mistakes as I was trying this out to film this for you guys. And you'll also just definitely be able to see what works and what doesn't work. And I'm going to share some tips for you so that this can actually be a fun activity and not a tragic activity if you make a couple certain little missteps along the way. Remember, this is a really simple game. There's not that much to it. It's really easy to set up, and it's a lot of fun. Okay, the setup. So first of all, whether you're playing this at a bachelorette party or a wedding, whether you're going to be giving the answers with or without your partner present, whether you're playing on Zoom or in person, it doesn't matter. The setup is essentially the same no matter what. So we're going to go over the setup first. So you're first going to make a list of questions that you want to ask each other, and this will essentially be 2 copies of the same exact questions, and these are the questions that are going to serve as the basis for the whole game. So here are just some sample questions you can use if you are playing this game, but feel free to change these, to add them, to use whatever questions you want. I think it's a good idea to use kind of a combination of really simple, easy questions, and also like some funny or goofy or weird questions just coming out of left field where you have no idea what your partner is going to answer. If you have a trusted friend, you could just ask a friend to make this list of questions for you, so it's a complete surprise for both you and your partner. That's actually maybe a more fair way to set up the game. As you're writing your questions, it's really important to phrase them so that they're not confusing. So make sure you explicitly put your partner's name into the question, or that you put bride or groom if you're a heterosexual couple. Just make sure it's really clear so that the person answering it isn't like, am I answering this for me or for my partner? So for example, if the question is like, what is your favorite movie? That can be a little confusing because the person doesn't know if they're supposed to write their favorite movie or their partner's favorite movie. So when you're writing the question, make sure you explicitly say like, what is Joe's favorite movie? So I would answer what Joe's favorite movie is, and Joe would also put his favorite movie, and then hopefully, ideally, our answers would match. As you're choosing those questions, if you can involve any of the audience members or the guests or the crowd or whoever's going to be watching the game, that's also really fun. So questions such as like, who is the groom's best friend, or who set you up on your first date, or something like that. I also recommend, if you've been in a relationship for a long time, don't do really basic questions. So we did questions like, how does Brittany like her coffee? Where was your first date? Who said I love you first? Who made the first move? Who's the tidiest? Who's the best cook? And for us, like, a lot of these questions are really basic because we've been together for 6 years. And I think the original Newlywed Game was designed for couples who had been together 2 years or less, or who had been married 2 years or less. So if you are a couple who's been together a really long time, doing kind of basic questions won't be that interesting for you. So you've got to dig a little deeper for those weirder questions, or like just more interesting questions. Know your crowd. If you're going to be playing this with a mixed crowd, with your grandmother present, for example, make sure that you're mindful of that and that you don't choose questions that are going to embarrass you or your partner or somebody else in the crowd. I ended up writing them for our demonstration today, but you can definitely print them and make them look a lot nicer. And then essentially what you do to set up this game is you take a copy of the questions and your partner takes a copy of the questions, and you both fill in your answers to these questions. Ideally, you and your partner would both be separate from each other. You would not know at all what your answers are going to be. You wouldn't give each other any hints to what your answers are going to be, because that kind of takes the fun away from it, and you want to see what genuinely each other would write for each of the questions. And then on the day of the bachelorette party or the wedding or whenever it might be, the host takes those two sets of questions and takes turns reading both of your answers. And if there's a match, if your answers match, essentially that's a point. And if they don't match, that's no point. To make it more fun, especially if you're going to be on Zoom and you just have that little box to work with, I would suggest writing out your questions on a piece of paper. What I did is I just took some blank white pieces of paper, cut them in half so I wasn't using as much paper. We took some magic markers and then we just wrote our answers nice and big on those half sheets of paper. Another mistake we made though is that we should have just used black Sharpies. I wanted to make it more colorful by using colorful magic markers, and they just didn't show up that well in the camera lens. So if you're gonna be on Zoom and you're just gonna have this tiny square showing of you and your partner, it's better to just use black Sharpie. So what we ended up doing is we sat right next to each other and answered these questions. I don't recommend doing that. Please go to different rooms, sit in separate areas as you're setting up this game. I would also suggest like giving yourself a little bit of time in advance to answer these questions so you have time to sort of forget what they were, and then it's like a little bit more fun on the day when you play the game. Me and Phil answered the questions and then played the game right after, and it just wasn't as much fun because we had just answered those questions. So for the setup, you and your partner are both separated. You both have a copy of the same list of questions, ideally 15 to 20 questions. Any less is maybe too few. It makes the game go too quickly, and any more than that, people get a little bit bored and they're over it. You also have those cut up white pieces of paper and a Sharpie, and you're writing your answers nice and big and making sure that you keep those papers in order. Maybe putting like a little number in the bottom right-hand corner just to make sure that the cards are in the right order of the questions as they're going to be asked. To keep the questions organized, I just made 2 folders with my name and Phil's name on them, and so because we're supposedly answering these questions, filling them in separately, although we were sitting right next to each other, we broke the rules, but really you should do it separately. After we answered the questions by putting our answers on those white pieces of paper, we could just take the stack of white pieces of paper and put them into our folders, our respective folders with our names on them, and keep them secret until we started playing the game. Okay, so that's the setup. Now, on the day of the game, it honestly doesn't make a huge difference whether you're playing the Newlywed Game on Zoom or in person. You'll either be without your partner because you're doing this at something like a bachelorette party, or you'll be sitting next to your partner because you're doing this at like a wedding rehearsal dinner or the wedding itself. So if you're alone or without your partner, what you'll do is your MC or your host will read out each question one at a time, and every time the host asks a question, you lift up your answer for that question, and the host will either like verbally say your partner's answer by reading off the list, or you can have the host or another friend or family members of yours physically lift up your partner's answers, and then everybody can see visually if yours and your partner's answers match or not. A tip here is to have consequences for right or wrong answers that all of your guests or all of your crowd can participate in. So like everybody takes a shot or takes a sip for a right answer or a wrong answer, depending whatever you want to do there. Or you can ask your guests to guess what they think your partner and you answered between answers, and give out prizes even if you want for anyone who guesses the answer correctly. These are just fun ways to get your crowd involved. You don't want to make it like too couple-centric where you kind of lose your crowd and they get bored during the game. Okay, and if your partner is present with you and you're both sitting next to each other, then you would both just reveal your answers at the same time. So you'd both just hold up your white pieces of paper with the answers on them at the same time, taking them one at a time out of the folders. Remember to keep it light by asking questions that aren't going to embarrass anybody or upset you or your partner. You don't want to be having an argument in the middle of this game that's supposed to be fun. And just have a good time. If things don't go perfectly, don't worry about it. Just move on. Remember that it's supposed to be fun. I hope that this was helpful for you guys. Please like this video and subscribe to my channel. Thank you so much. So yeah, maybe don't use light green. Okay, so that's a point. Who is the tidiest? one's easy.
Yeah.
Definitely Phil. What is Phil's favorite movie? I'm curious what you wrote. Not Hudson Sucha. What'd you say?
The Fifth Element?
Oh, shoot. Shoot.
You messed up.
I was thinking more recent.
Ah.
Roma.
Yeah. I just couldn't think.
The Fifth Element, of course.
I just went with nostalgia, you know?
Darn it. I knew that. Okay.
Okay.
Where does Phil want to travel most? These are all way too easy. Yeah, Indonesia. Raja Ampat, or which is in Indonesia. Who made the first move?
Why are you all mixed up?
I don't know. Don't look. Who is the most organized?
A bonus question.
Where is it?
On the back of one of the other ones?
Oh, here it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's true. So these are too easy. Where did you have your first kiss?
The jungle.
Yeah, Hatun Sacha, the name of the specific jungle. Where was your first date?
The zoo.
The zoo in Ecuador. Sorry. 10 out of 12.
Not
10 out
bad.
of 12. Not bad.
I guess we can get married.